and more so as we are approaching the election year, which comes next year, 2026. In studio this morning, I'm privileged to be joined by Acting President of the Patriotic Front Party, who is also former Justice Minister, Honorable Given Lubinda. Honorable, good morning and welcome to Lusaka.
Good morning, Madam Kaunda, and good morning, listeners. Thank you very much for having me on your program. It's been a while since I was last on Lusaka radio. It's nice to be back.
We're actually honored to have your presence this morning. Now, before we dive into national matters, we know that currently making headlines in Zambia is the issue of the constitutional amendment and also the economic situation. But before we get into that, let's start with talking about the Patriotic Front Party. Recently, we hosted one of the faction leader, who is also leader of the opposition in Parliament, Honorable Robert Chavinga, who mentioned or disclosed to the nation that the Patriotic Front come 2026 will not be participating in the general election, especially on the presidential level. So with the factions that exist and knowing the fact that next year is an election period, how are you working towards, firstly, just maintaining unity within your party?
We are united. Excuse me. We are united in the Patriotic Front. And the Patriotic Front that Chavinga is talking about is not the Patriotic Front that belongs to the members of the Patriotic Front. That is the Patriotic Front that belongs to Hakainde Hichilema, the one that Hakainde Hichilema grabbed from us when he staged the coup through Miles Sampa on the 24th of October 2023. That is the PF that Chavinga is speaking about. When you talk about the Patriotic Front that belongs to the structures where people are, that party is still intact, and come 2026, it shall participate in elections. And you are aware of the fact that we have since formed an alliance with other political parties called the Tonse Alliance. So in 2026, all those political parties that are under the Tonse Alliance shall choose one special purpose vehicle to use to contest elections in 2026.
But Honorable, when you look at the registrar of societies and the names that appear there, Honorable Chavinga is one of the names that is appearing there. So then, how do you say the Patriotic Front of Honorable Chavinga is not recognized?
Because that is the coup that I was speaking about. And by the way, there's been a third coup. First, it was the coup staged by Hakainde Hichilema using Miles Sampa. After that, there was another coup by Hakainde Hichilema against Miles Sampa, where he used Robert Chavinga. And now, recently, the court decided that the second coup was illegal, and they handed the party back to Miles Sampa. So as far as I'm concerned, the name that is at Registrar of Societies is Miles Sampa. And I want to make it clear that a political party does not necessarily exist because of the Registrar of Society. No, especially not in a country of lawlessness such as Zambia, where people can just go without following the due process. They change the names of office bearers of an institution. Recently, you would notice that even UNIP suffered the same fate. Bishop Mwamba was removed from the Registrar of Societies files as being president of UNIP, and somebody else was put in there. Now, in a country of lawlessness of that nature, you don't depend on what the Registrar of Society tells you. You depend on what the people say. And the people are solidly behind the Patriotic Front, the official Patriotic Front, which is led by Edgar Chagwa Lungu. That is the Patriotic Front that will contest elections through the Tonse Alliance in 2026. And I have no problems to hear anyone saying their Patriotic Front, the Patriotic Front that exists in their minds, the Patriotic Front at the Registrar of Societies will not take part in the elections. I have no problem with that, for as long as I know that the real Patriotic Front and the leadership of the Patriotic Front have decided that they're going to contest elections in 2026 under the Tonse Alliance. As I speak now, you know that the Patriotic Front had a candidate in Petauke, and we used a special purpose vehicle the National Congress Party, and we won the elections. We took part in the elections in Pambashe, in Kawambwa, as Patriotic Front under the Tonse Alliance, and we had chosen a special purpose vehicle. In Pambashe, we chose FDD. And the candidate there is a PF member, but we're using a special purpose vehicle called the NCP. We had a candidate also for Kala Ward in Kawambwa until the shenanigans of UPND and their government, where they abducted our person and forced him to retire from politics. And we're waiting now to see whether, for the first time, Zalomis who abide by the law to do what is provided for in the Constitution, to nullify those nominations and start afresh.
I think listeners would like to understand, Honorable. You say on one end, the Patriotic Front, to which you belong, that is the official party. And on the other end, you're telling us that the Patriotic Front is participating in elections, but on the Tonse Alliance. It's kind of confusing. Tonse Patriotic Front.
It shouldn't confuse you. It shouldn't confuse you. Any political party is at liberty to join other parties in an alliance. The UPND, for instance, since they're the ones who are causing all these problems, they can therefore be cited as an example. They formed what they refer to as the UPND Alliance. And you heard one Nevas Mumba yesterday speaking on behalf of the UPND. That does not mean that MMD does not exist. It simply means that MMD have gone into partnership with UPND. And the PF has also gone into partnership with all the other political parties under the Tonse arrangement. Now, because of the mismanagement and misrule of Hakainde Hichilema, unfortunately, they would not accept any nomination forms that are signed by Edgar Chagwa Lungu and our General Secretary, Raphael Nakachinda. Because of that, we have decided we're not going to deny Zambians the opportunity for them to choose a leader that they want. We have decided that we use a special purpose vehicle. And as the case is now in Nyimba, the special purpose vehicle is NCP. So this mustn't surprise you at all. We are aware of the fact that formally, officially, at the Registrar of Societies, our names were removed illegally. They were removed illegally by UPND. And because of that, we cannot use the name PF to field any candidate. And we cannot continue to allow that Hakainde's dictatorial tendency must affect us and must affect the Zambian people. The people of Zambia know who the PF are. They know that we are the PF. And this is the reason why, even when we campaign, we use PF regalia, we use T-shirts bearing the name Patriotic Front and bearing the image of Edgar Chagwa Lungu, and people vote for us.
What is the interest of the UPND in your party issues? Because you keep making reference to them as the reason to why your names were removed, and also that it's the UPND allegedly that sponsored the faction, for example.
This is not.
So what do you think is their interest in
Madam,
that?
this is not an allegation at all. Don't make the listeners think that I'm just making wild allegations. This is not an allegation. This is a proven fact. Hakainde Hichilema has his footprints and his fingerprints everywhere in that coup. Tell me if you, madam, at your age, you've ever heard of any political party allowed to hold a convention on Independence Day. Nowhere in the world is it allowed. Not when the nation is celebrating its Independence Day. Never. No country would allow a political party to hold a convention, not even the ruling party, particularly when the president is hosting a foreign dignitary. It never happens. Tell me, madam, whether there is any person in this country who has ever seen the number of police officers, the battalions that were sent to Mulungushi International Conference Center to go and protect Miles Sampa. Has that ever happened to any opposition political party? Never. As a matter of fact, not even for the president himself. The police officers who were at Mulungushi outnumbered those who were at State House on that day. And are you sure that Grafeo Musamba would have allowed battalions of police officers, trucks of police officers, those tankers, police tankers, going to protect an opposition political party on Independence Day? No. All those are fingerprints of Hakainde Hichilema. Tell me, madam, when you have ever heard that the police can lift fingerprints of even criminals in the middle of the night, and yet they lifted fingerprints of the so-called elected officials who were elected at that meeting at Mulungushi in the night. And the very next Monday, the Registrar of Societies was already being told to change the leadership, the official leadership, in the files at the Registrar of Societies office. And you think that could happen without Hakainde's approval? No. So Hakainde's fingerprints are everywhere. So what I'm saying is not an allegation, this is a proven fact. And I know that Hakainde and his zealots will not agree, but I don't expect them to agree. Have you ever seen a criminal just going volunteering and saying, yes, I committed a crime? No. They committed a crime and they'll continue to deny it. But the fingerprints are everywhere. The evidence is everywhere.
What is the interest? I still ask this question. What do you think is the interest of the UPND sponsoring confusion in your party?
Their fear is their interest. They have paranoia. They are paranoid. Just to think about PF, they develop goose pimples. Hakainde, just to hear the name Edgar Chagwa Lungu, he starts fitting. They have so much fear for Edgar Chagwa Lungu. They have so much fear for the Patriotic Front. And they know for a fact that if they don't destabilize the Patriotic Front, they will not manage to win the elections in 2026. And the only way out for them is to decimate opposition political parties, decimate especially the Patriotic Front.
Well, if they outsat you in 2021, because you were the party in power then, they still managed to win the elections. What makes you think that now that they're in power, they cannot win the 2026 election? They can lose to you as the Patriotic Front that lost in 2021? It
is because the Zambian people then forgot the old adage, better the devil you know than the angel you don't. Hakainde postured like an angel. Hakainde walked this country and said, when I come, all of you Zambians will have 3 square meals a day. I have already gotten $25 billion from my friends in America. The first day, just after you elect me, $25 billion will come into the economy. I'll pay off this debt. All of you will have better salaries. I'm going to reduce the price of mealie meal to 50 kwacha. I'm going to reduce the price of fertilizer to 25 kwacha. I'm going to make sure every child goes to school. I'm going to make sure that you have freedom of speech, freedom of movement. I'll make sure you have all your liberties and so on. And the people fell for that. Unfortunately, my dear mother country, her citizens were duped. They were deceived. The angel deceived them. But now the truth has been seen, that actually what people say, not everything that glitters is gold, has come to bear on the people. People have realized actually they were better off under the PF.
So you mean the Zambian people are missing the Patriotic Front government?
Precisely. I mean, just think of it. Look at how people are suffering today. Can you imagine Zambians who were affording to have square meals? Today they are being told by their own president, please, when you eat in the evening, don't give the remaining food to dogs. Keep it so that you eat chimbala tomorrow morning. And this is a head of state. Are you sure that Zambians are not missing the Patriotic Front? Are you yourself not missing the Patriotic Front? Where I go, everywhere I go, people are telling us we regret what we did. And I can tell your listeners on this radio program that after elections of August 2021, even walking in shops became unbearable because people were really saying, yeah, you will see, the things will improve. And we were feeling, well, let us see these things improve. It was difficult for us to walk the streets of Lusaka, but within 6 months, wherever I went, people were celebrating. Now wherever I go, people are saying, imwe bantu please tavutika. Bwererani imwe bantu tavutika. Onani cost ya fuel. Onani mitengo ya vakudia. Onani macues. Can you imagine in a country like Zambia with so much abundance, people queuing up for cooking oil, people queuing up even for bread? I was in a shop in Matero the other day. in the evening, people queuing up for a loaf of bread. Cry, my dear country. And you're sure that the people are not seeing this? At least where I live, the people I meet, they tell me all the time, please bwererani tavutika. Abahaga inda abanatiuza boza yeka chabana kulibolo promise or imozi yamena chita fulfill. This is the reason why has even named himself names such as Bali Muntuwabufi, Vashi promise. I mean, tell me where you go in Lusaka or in Zambia where people are celebrating. When you hear Proud celebrating, when you hear Nevas Mumba celebrating, it is because they are celebrating because the GDP in their mouths has grown. But the GDP for the people is not growing.
Acting President, are you saying that the time that the Patriotic Front, the United Party for National Development has been in power, 4 years, there's nothing really that you as the opposition can point to, as something that has been delivered for the Zambian people that they wanted, the positives rather, that this government has given the Zambian people? Is everything about it negative?
When I hear President Hakainde bragging about what he has done, he points at what the PF did. Not too long ago, he was bragging about Kazungula Bridge. This is our project, which we did. The other day, it was Mulungushi International Conference Center. When they came into government, they were bragging, we have excess maize in our storage facilities. Where did that maize come from? It was PF grown maize. Kazungula is a PF project. Mulungushi International is a PF project. Can Hakainde himself or his people, his ministers, can they show us what they have done? Have they alleviated the suffering of the Zambians? Zambia today is rated the 6th poorest country in the world. And yet it is among the 10 largest producers of copper. Zambia produces world-class emerald. What did Mr. Hakainde do to our emerald? When Michael Chilufya-Sata formed government in 2011, we decided we're going to auction emerald in Zambia. Why we did that was because we didn't want the emerald to go out of Zambia. It's auctioned in India. We are not even in control of the prices. We're not in control of the money, the proceeds from the revenue or the revenue of the sale. We decided let it be auctioned here in Zambia. When we were in government, we formed ZamGold. We said the gold that is being mined, this is a treasure from God, an endowment for all the citizens of Zambia, living and future citizens. We decided we cannot go the same way we've been going, where our precious minerals are being exported at the expense of Zambians. We decided we were going to form ZamGold. All the gold that will be mined in Zambia shall be sold to ZamGold, and we shall keep the bullions in the Bank of Zambia to cushion our currency. Because if our currency is cushioned, if our currency is strengthened, it benefits every single Zambian. What did Mr. Hakainde do? He came and just said, everyone and anyone can do as they wish with our gold. He brought in his foreign investors to come and mine your copper, and is bragging that we have gone to 800,000 metric tons. 800,000 metric tons of copper from 700,000 in 2021. Can you tell us how many Zambians have benefited from that? What is the beneficiation for Zambia from that 800,000 metric tons? As far as we're concerned in the Patriotic Front, and I've said this before, I say it now and I'll say it again, if this current generation of Hakainde Hichilema and Edgar Chagwa Lungu and Given Lubinda and so on and so forth are not capable of exploiting our mineral wealth for the benefit of Zambians, leave it in the ground, because the future generation will come and do it better. Leave it.
We'll come and look at the mining sector in detail as the program unfolds. But let's get back to your party. Mr. Chavinga, that I made reference to earlier, pointed that the confusion that has happened within the Patriotic Front is something that should be blamed on former President Edgar Lungu, because before he retired from politics, he needed to put his house in order. What is your comment on that?
Can I request that you don't use me to give any prominence to a person who doesn't deserve prominence whatsoever? I don't want to make reference to a person like Chavinga. That's a waste of my time.
All right. Do you
Total waste
think
of time.
former President Edgar Lungu contributed to the confusion in your party?
Not at
by
all.
not putting the house in order before
Not
he
at all.
retired from politics?
President Edgar Chagwa Lungu put everything in order when he retired. He had the Central Committee in place. He appointed people to the Central Committee, and he formally told us, I'm retiring. The Central Committee itself said, no, sir, we are not going to allow you to retire. We will allow you to go on leave of absence, but you will not retire. The Patriotic Front Central Committee stopped him from retiring. Okay? And if anyone is saying President Edgar Chagwa Lungu created the confusion, was he the one who sponsored the coup? Because the confusion in the Patriotic Front arose from the coup. So if you tell me that yes, you have evidence that President Edgar Lungu is the one who took the police there, you have evidence that President Edgar Lungu is the one who selected those thugs and hooligans who had delegate cards to go to that meeting, then I will agree that it was him who caused the confusion. But for as long as he was not involved in that, then leave him out. He was not part of the confusion. The confusion was created by the one who sponsored that coup and those who participated in the coup. There are some people who went to that meeting who afterwards said, we did not even know that we're coming for this. You heard them on radio, you saw them on television saying, we're coming to celebrate Independence Day. We came for independence, we were shocked, tingena meeting at meeting yankala election. He said, tonight it's celebration, yabwele ya chinja yankala meeting, yankala election. Now, who caused that? Do you see any hand of Edgar Lungu in that? Do you see my hand in that? No. Hadn't it been for Hakainde Hichilema, I wouldn't have been in this confusion.
The founding father of the Patriotic Front, late President Michael Chimpiasata, did put in a lot. He did so much to get the party to where it was, to a point where it even formed government. Now, when we look at all this that is happening really, and the effort that was put in, of course it was teamwork to get the party to be where it is. How do you think this would have made the late president feel had he been here? This confusion, these three factions, and just where the state that the Patriotic Front is in.
Wherever he is, the spirit of Michael Chilofyasata is not at peace. Wherever he is. A party that he founded, a party that he worked hard for, a party that he handed over to others to manage, has been subject of destruction by an outsider. He is really sad wherever he is.
You're still listening to Talk of the City on Lusaka Radio 97.7 FM. To be a part of it, you can call us on 0966 992770. That is 0966 992770. You can also call us on 0977 977860. That is 0977 977860. My guest this morning is a former Justice Minister, Honorable Given Lubinda, who is also acting president of the former ruling party, the Patriotic Front. Now let's move on, Honorable, as we are waiting for calls and contributions from our dear listeners, to looking at other issues. You served as Justice Minister at the time when we had the Bill 10. Right now in Zambia, we are at the point where there is a proposed amendment to the Constitution. We've seen 13 clauses. Of course, those that are supporting this are saying these are non-contentious. How do you look at that?
My dear lady, there is nothing in any constitution that is non-contentious. Everything in the Constitution is highly contentious. Even where a comma is placed in a sentence in the Constitution is highly contentious. A comma can be the difference between life and death. So, those who are saying these are non-contentious issues are trying to hoodwink Zambians. And I'd like to appeal to Zambians to discount that. When the whole process started, Parliament actually wrote to our members of Parliament, to PF members of Parliament, and they said to them, can you kindly identify non-contentious issues in the Constitution so that we can consider amendments? Our members of Parliament consulted the leadership of the party And we said to them, can you show us, you yourselves as members of parliament, show us one clause in the constitution which is non-contentious. They failed. And they themselves said, no, there is nothing that is non-contentious. They wrote back to parliament and they said, everything in the constitution is contentious. And if you want us to participate in these amendments, then make sure that the process is people-driven. It mustn't be driven by parliament. It mustn't be driven by the government. It must be people-driven. And that is our position.
This constitution amendment proposal comes at a point where we are preparing for the general elections. When you look at the timing, as a party, of course, that is going to take part in the elections next year, is the timing okay for you?
First of all, I would like the Zambians to know that those who are telling them that they are non-contentious issues are just bluffing. They are telling them lies. Secondly, the process of amending a constitution must not be with an election in mind. No. You don't amend a constitution with an election in mind. This process is election-driven. Every word in it is election-driven. And the election is only a few months away. Any meaningful constitution reform process must be given sufficient time frame. It must start with the people, must be given a legal framework, and people must use it to build consensus. As they discuss the amendments, they must be uniting. That's what a constitutional reform process must do. This one, unfortunately, is ill-conceived, it is ill-timed, it is ill-planned, and ill-executed. Everything about it is just wrong. There's nothing at all that is right. Everything about this constitution-making process is totally wrong.
Maybe just take us through the process of how Bill 10 was, the fact that it was happening during a time where you were Justice Minister.
On the 9th of November 2016, 9th of November, just a few months after elections, 9th of November 2016, there was a private member's motion moved in Parliament. Okay? A private member's motion means a motion moved not by a minister, but by a backbencher. A backbencher moved a motion urging the government to amend the Constitution Act number 2 of 2016. And in his own words, he said, government must amend the Constitution so as to A, take back MPs into councils, and B, to correct all the inconsistencies and the lacuna in the Constitution. That was his motion. And at that time, PF had 80 members of parliament. 80. UPND had 58. But how many people voted in favor of that motion? 91. Okay? 91 members of parliament voted in favor of the motion which was urging government to amend the constitution. Now, we as a government were a government that respected parliament. And after 91 people said, yes, go ahead and amend the constitution, the next thing we did was to ask the Zambian people. And I announced in January 2017, Madam, January 2017, just a few months after elections in August 2016, in January 2017, I made a public announcement that the government had listened to the voices of members of parliament urging the government to amend the constitution. And we said, all those who have views on what should be amended in the constitution, please, we're giving you 1 year in which to make submissions. And they made submissions until May 2018. Madam, the submissions came from institutions such as the Law Association of Zambia, the judiciary itself, all commissions in Zambia, all government ministries made submissions, all provincial administrations in Zambia made submissions, cabinet office made submissions, the Auditor General's office made submissions, the National Assembly of Zambia made submissions, Bank of Zambia made submissions, Human Rights Commission made submissions, Anti-Corruption Commission made submissions, TIZ made submissions, churches made submissions, many numerous organizations made submissions. It was not driven by the PF. It was driven by the people. In May 2018, Ministry of Justice was ready for us to start compiling the submissions. And in May itself, the Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue called on all political party presidents to talk about the Constitution. Finally, they spoke to Edgar Chagwalungu at the PF Secretariat. He lowered himself. He said, I'm coming to meet you not only as Republican president, I want to meet you also as a leader of a party. He met Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue delegation, led by a UPND member, by the way. He met them at the PF Secretariat, and they said to him, sir, we know that you have given Zambians more than a year, from January 2017 to now May 2018, to make submissions. But please, can you give us time? We as Zambia Center for Inter-Party Dialogue, a conglomeration of all the political parties in Zambia, give us time. We would like to have a meeting of all political parties to look at this matter. President Edgar Lungu was gracious enough. He knew that this must be people-driven, and he knew he couldn't leave anybody behind. He instructed me, he said, Minister, slow down with your process. Let us allow our colleagues to go and interrogate this constitution-making process. Let them make submissions. Madam, your listeners know that from the 11th to the 12th of June 2018, all political parties, including UPND, met in Siavonga at what was called the National Dialogue Summit in Siavonga. And after that, they made submissions. End of 2018, I made a ministerial statement. All right? And in that statement, I said, now that we have got these submissions, and we've got submissions from the political parties, we now are at a place where we should now come with a legal framework. How will we handle these submissions so that every Zambian is aware of the roadmap? And that roadmap must not just be a roadmap agreed upon by government, that must be a roadmap approved by Parliament. That is how you came up with the NDF Act. Okay? The NDF Act was passed in April 2019 unanimously. There was not a single member of Parliament who opposed it. We passed it and we said, number one, all the people who submitted must come to the NDF. Everyone who submitted, every organization that submitted was asked to be represented. Some were represented by one person, others by two, others by three. Every political party was represented by 3 people. All members of Parliament were represented. All church mother bodies were represented. Sports organizations were represented. Artists, musicians were represented. Traditional leaders were represented. They themselves sat at the NDF, more than 450 people, Madam, at Mulungushi. They sat and elected amongst themselves the leadership of the NDF. They elected Professor Mwanalushi to chair. I didn't. It wasn't Edgar Lungu, because we knew the Constitution is not for us, the Constitution is for the people of Zambia. Now, this elaborate process led us to going through all the submissions. At Mulungushi, every submission was interrogated, and we ended up with what is referred to as Bill 10. Bill 10 was not written by Edgar Chagwalungu, for heaven's sake. It was not written by me. It was not written by Ministry of Justice. Bill 10 was written by the National Dialogue Forum. I wasn't the secretary of the National Dialogue Forum. It wasn't PF that was the National Dialogue Forum Secretariat. No. They had their own professional secretariat. NGOCC were represented. They were vice chair of the NDF. It wasn't PF. You can see we brought people from the academia. Professor Mwanalushi was elected. We brought people from civil society organizations. NGOCC were represented. Bill 10 came about, and immediately Bill 10 came about, the product of NDF. I did not even submit it to President Lungu for your own information. I did not present it to cabinet because the law says that must be published in a gazette, and I published it in the gazette for 1 month. Gazette notice number 660 of 2019. And people had discussions, television programs, people were sitting at Intercontinental, at Pamosi, and everywhere talking about Bill 10. We did not stop anybody. Finally, the bill came to Parliament. And madam, at Parliament, Honorable Patrick Matibini, that gallant speaker, real speaker, Wasatima Speaker Odoba, that real speaker, you know what he did? He decided, I'm going to compose a 17-member team to look at this bill. 17 members of Parliament. Of those 17, 8 were from the ruling party, 9 were from the opposition. They sat not for 1 week. I saw this roadmap of this amendment of theirs where they are predetermining. The bill hasn't been presented to Parliament. You don't know the controversy around the amendments, and you already say Parliament is going to sit for 2 weeks. My foot. Who are you to determine how long Parliament will take to look at the bill? You have no power. That power vests in Parliament. For us, Speaker Matibini decided, I'm going to give these people 7 weeks. They took 7 weeks. Madam, they had 45 meetings. And how many people went to submit? More than 450 individuals went to submit to Parliament. You can see that our process was well thought through. When the day of voting came, what happened? The law says nobody has the power to stop a member of Parliament from going to Parliament to participate in debate. But that fateful day, what happened? All UPND MPs were locked up at somebody's house in Shantumbu. They were locked up, and later on they were celebrating, and unfortunately it was so embarrassing that they go to their president's house and is giving them 4 cousins wine and giving them in plastic cups and eating wings of hungry lion, celebrating.
To be a part of this conversation this morning, you can call us on 0966 992770. That is 0966 992770. Or you can call us on 0977 977860. That is 0977 977860. Let's see if you can accommodate this caller. Good morning, your name and where you're calling us from. Hello, good morning, sir. Your name and where you're calling us from.
Yes, good morning, madam. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
This is Lubinda, the voice of Mwakura from
Mulema,
Lubinda.
you can go ahead with your contribution, Mr. Mulenga. Mulenga, your contribution, sir. Wind up with your contribution. Okay. Thank you so much. Let's see if we can accommodate another caller this morning. Please stick to the topic of discussion. And even as you put across your messages, please let's try as much as possible to be respectful and use language which is acceptable on radio. Good morning. You're through to Talk of the City. Your name and where you're calling us from?
Yes, Madam, hi.
I'm fine. How are you, sir?
Yes, I'm very much okay.
Your name, sir, and where you're calling from?
My name is Peter Suratla. I'm calling from Ashwin.
You can go ahead with your contribution, sir.
Nigeria will be, it's just like wasting time, there's not, like as a country, according to the position where we are right now, those guys were back then, you cannot, bring the Brazil. And we are going to speak, it's too.
Your network is very bad. If you can try to call us back, we'll appreciate it. Let's see if we can accommodate another caller. Hello, you're through to Lusaka Radio Breakfast. Talk of the City, rather. Hello, your name and where you're calling us from? Mr. Job, go ahead with your contribution.
Bwino mdala muli bwanji.
Then voy a poner y a constitución. Abantu bakotatiza endawulo kuno bakataka kuchita mwakawina mu 2026 mwepaso tanto swakunombera bamufuna ngobishiramu kakamuna gavumenti likwazireni na mu parliamenti muri abasika bodobala Bamwe parliament besizi bakyabagye bamere bakuna ndo basoka mutara otherwise dalopekendera nindeemu irinaiko kumbuyo chezi bakibendele.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Let's see if we can accommodate one more caller before we allow our guests to respond. Good morning. You're going to Talk of the City. Your name and where you're calling us from? Hello, we can get you your name, sir, and where you're calling from.
Thank you very much. You are speaking to Willie calling you in Lusaka, the honorable member for Lusaka.
Honorable member, you can go ahead with your contribution.
Thank you very much. To start with, Madam, I think in as much as we are calling respect from other people, the respect is just within the house itself. Honorable member here hosting, I think is on the record at the beginning, it was just some minutes now. Just demeaning the current Speaker, National Assembly. And I was there.
We're listening to you, sir. You have a minute.
So if that is the case, please first demand that she retract the statement of saying must be approved.
All right. Okay, thank you. You can then contribute. Your question?
No?
Yes, sir. We've gotten your point now. You can go ahead with your contribution.
Yes. I need to start with the if are disgraced to this nation. That is point number one. Because if these people, they were really serious, they could have put their house in order. How many presidents do they have currently? Many who were empty. Just recently, should be 2 days ago. Their faction president, the Mao Zedong, has expelled about 5 members. Are you saying something?
Yes, you can wind up.
No, I can hardly get you. Let me just go back.
All right, thank you so much. Before we allow more calls, Honorable, you can respond to those concerns I have.
Yes, please. Let me start by the complaint by Mulenga, which has been reiterated by the man from New Kasama. If indeed the word I used, as Speaker about Doba, is painful, then I happily withdraw it. But in withdrawing it, don't you make any insinuation that I referred to any particular speaker. No. When I said my speaker or Doba, I did not talk about the current speaker. Zambia has had many speakers, and the world has many speakers. So don't you make an imputation that I'm talking about your speaker. No.
Well, maybe because you made reference to the previous speaker.
Yes.
And the
yes, I made reference to Patrick Matibini. In the same way I can make reference to Nabuliato, in the same way I can make reference to Mwanamwambwa, I can make reference to them. But I have to make direct reference to them. If I don't mention their name, then don't say I've mentioned them. Because how does he know that I was talking about Mwanamwambwa? How does he know that I was not talking about Nabuliato? Why is it that he's speaking the current speaker? Why? So that is being mischievous. I did not mention any particular speaker, but the bottom line is if the word I used sounds too harsh, I happily withdraw it and replace it by saying Patrick Matibini proved that he was a very astute speaker who performed his function exceedingly well. And in the manner that he handled Bill 10, we give kudos to him because he allowed parliamentarians the time that they needed to interrogate Bill 10, and he allowed more than 450 people to participate. This gives me an opportunity to also tell Mulenga, we did not spend money on the NDF. Mulenga, this idea of imputing things and saying we're drinking Jameson and so on and so forth is just mischief. I did not talk about any money that we spent. All those people went to the NDF. If you go and ask the members of parliament, the only allowance they were getting was parliamentary allowance. That's all. We did not pay people. And now Mulenga, because he's trying to create an impression that PF was wasteful, because his master has been saying that, his master was saying that, he now wants to repeat this. Well, Mulenga, let me assure you that any constitution-making process is a people-driven process. And indeed, if it's going to have many meetings, let it be. It is not up to you, Mulenga, to say, how can you even say that? Mulenga, you are sure that the Republican Constitution can be rubbished in the manner that you're doing? That only 6 people should sit and agree? Mulenga, don't be fanatical to that extent. Be realistic. The Republican Constitution is the grand norm of Zambia, which governs current and will govern future citizens and requires a very rigorous process. Number 2, Bachila Bombwe, at all, they are going nowhere. Fine, we have no problem with that. Bachila Bombwe, we have no problem with that. It is not up to you. It is up to the people of Zambia. And if you're going to support things just because you want to be a fanatic, fine. But for us in the Patriotic Front, we are saying this constitution-making process is flawed. Njovu Mwana, thank you very much. You know, just to add to what you said, Njovu, abantu even mu manifesto yao 2021 to 2026 manifesto, page 36 of their manifesto, what did they say about the constitution-making process? They said we are going to reform the constitution through a broad-based process, through consensus building process, through a consultative process. That's what they said. But Banjo, Mulenga, Nabachira Bombwe, Nabanyuka Sama, they want to say, no, Basi and Chabe Balembe constitution on their own. But this is what they promised. Vashi promised that is going to use a broad-based process.
Honorable, why do you keep referring to the president as Vashi promised? Because everybody knows when you say that, then you're referring to the president.
Because that's the name that he's called by.
Well, he's got the name, so why don't you just address him by his name?
Look, you know that I'm called Zayelo. And I accept it.
So you want him to accept that you're calling him Vashi promise?
But that's what people call him. And he knows it. He's Vashi promise. Is that you know, this is the problem in Zambia, that what others say is so painful than what you say about yourself. Huh? There are matters in court now. Some people have gone to court for naming parts of some people's bodies. But when they name them themselves, it's okay. Now, tell me, what is wrong with me saying Vashi promise? Are you sure that Madam, you heard anyone being arrested when President Edgar Lungu was called Jameson? Who was arrested? People called President Edgar Lungu.
How do you feel? We are never here before the president. If you know your government is here for the own, what one another politician and to recognize the politician, that's what is done. So they have now come to begging. We all come to a people and you are the person affair. Yes.
Wind up with your contribution, Mr. Prod. All right. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your contribution. Please make sure that you shorten your contribution to a minute or less so that we can accommodate more callers. Good morning. You are free to talk. Kindly reduce the volume on your radio. Yes, good morning, sir. Your name and where you're calling us from. Yes, Mr. Makina. We can get you go ahead with your contribution.
Good morning, Mr. Vice President.
Good morning, Reverend.
Yes, let me appreciate this articulation and appreciate what the Vice President that he plant is bringing on the table and that this. I want to concur with what the Vice President is saying, that whatever issues are going here because of the ruling party. Because it is on record, we saw what had happened during that convention. That was not the details, so let me mention about the constitutional amendment. I wonder what the hurry all about. In the previous regime, there was a serious vision given, and it is on record. But now, in this regime, I don't know why they are so much in a hurry that they want to amend the constitution prior to the election. My question has always been, why can't they wait after the election? I want to remind them that the process.
Reverend Makina, please wind up with your contribution.
One step is going to do the entire process. So we want to remind them and to urge them that there is no malice whatsoever to wait until the election. Then they can go for that constitution.
All right. Thank you so much for your contribution. Let's see if we can accommodate one more caller before the guest response. Hello, you're through to Talk of the City. Good morning. Your name and where you're calling us from? Tao Kamal Kabanj.
Bwino mdara mwaka mwanja. Yes, but Oswald.
All right, thank you so much. Honorable, you can respond to those contributions that have come through.
Let me respond especially to Proud, so that Proud can at least come to his senses that he is also suffering like everybody else. He's talking about jobs being created for youths and so on. Not too long ago, Proud, do you remember mwana wamba kupika nsima ioweka mwamene iwe na kuzikopa upika pa moto wama plastic, wama cardboard, wa newspaper, udanda ulaweka na shakulibe. You yourself. And that wasn't during PF. It was now under Hakainde Hichilema. And today you want me to praise Hakainde Hichilema. Are you sure, Proud, I should praise Hakainde Hichilema, who has no respect for the law? And what do I mean by saying President Hakainde has no respect for the law? He is watching the law being broken with impunity and is not taking any action. I can cite many examples, Madam Kaunda. One example I can cite is how the elections in Kabushi and Kwacha were handled against the directive of the court. Under Hakainde's watch, he went and campaigned and even had elections against the ruling of a court. And a similar thing happened in Kawambwa. The court said, stay those elections. Did Hakainde stay the elections? No. Proud, your Hakainde did not stay the elections. He agreed to break the law. Huh? Look at how people are being arrested willy-nilly. Why? A person being arrested simply for speaking. They are being arrested. And you, Mr. Proud, you want me to be as proud as you over this? No, I cannot be proud. Huh? Now, I just want to advise you, Proud, that mwana vameti kamba vitu satira. Ukamba tivasegula market. Anapanga ija market ndani. Huh? Tell me which market Hakainde has built. Yes, you tell him atapange njanji. Yes, let him do njanji. Let him do something which we can clap about. What's atikungo kamba chabet because you support him, then you just talk and no. Sometimes, Proud, be realistic, face the reality. You there where you are staying, even if you were given that government award, you are suffering just like any other Zambian. Let those who are eating keep quiet, because to talk with your mouth full is...
You can respond to the other...
Now, let me move on to Oswald. I agree with you, Oswald Mwana. I will not bother about praise singers. So let me even just forget about Proud. And yes, Reverend, it's true. He said we gave time to the process, and we also gave a legal framework. Now, I also told you, Madam, that these amendments are all election focused. There is nothing in these amendments which is about the lives of people. It's all about elections. And this other man who was saying, Twaliona Olympia, what? Is he sure that if these amendments go through, the cost of living will reduce? No. As a matter of fact, government expenditure will increase exponentially. If you increase the number of members of parliament, what does that mean? You have to invest money in renovating that National Assembly. You have to pay more salaries, not only for members of parliament, but also for support staff. You have to also, if you go through delimitation, and this is the issue, we are not stopping delimitation. We are saying it has to be done in a process that is people-focused. The people must submit. It is not up to the government to just decide we want so many, and it is not up to ECZ to just come up and say we need this. They have to go and consult the people, and they haven't.
I'm interested in one of the contents of the proposed amendment, the one that is talking about the need to revise the provisions relating to filing of fresh nominations on designation of a candidate in an election. So yesterday during a press briefing held at the UPND Secretariat by the MMD leader, Nevas Mumba, he mentioned that without the Constitution, that's under Article 52(6) being revised, there is a potential for the President to stay longer in power than he should be.
Had that been a matter that really concerns Nevas Mumba, he should have supported Bill 10. Because that was in Bill 10. He didn't support it. Why has it become an issue now? And it wasn't an issue in 2019. Huh? Because Bill 10 had that provision. We wanted to amend that particular article. And Nevas Mumba didn't support it. Why has it become an issue now? Maybe it is because he fears that during that time the president who was there was not capable of abusing this. But the one who's there now is capable of abusing it. Maybe. But if it's such the case, he must state it as such.
What do you mean the current president is capable of abusing?
I'm saying, what is it that has changed, madam? In 2019, we presented Bill 10, and in Bill 10, we had a proposal to amend this article, 52(6). Nevas Mumba did not support it. Okay? Why is he supporting it now? What has changed? And that's why I'm saying maybe the change is the change of government. Maybe it's the change of president. Maybe. Because if this article is bad now, it couldn't have been good then. It must have been bad then.
When you look at the content of what is being proposed to be included in the Constitution in comparison to Bill 10, is there any difference that you can spot?
Yes. There are some new things which PF wouldn't even have thought about. For example, PF would not have come up with the idea of taking out of the Constitution the provision for nominated members of Parliament. We wouldn't do that, as they are planning to do. Why? Because we in the Patriotic Front believed that the presidency in Zambia already has excess power, and we shouldn't give it even more power. The idea of saying that now we should take that provision for nominated members of Parliament from the Constitution to subsidiary legislation, what that means, for the sake of the listeners, is that you can amend that with simple majority. Whereas now that it is in the Constitution, it requires 2/3 and you need only simple majority. And the president at that time has only simple majority. They will change the number from 10 to whatever number they want. They can put the number 50. And as long as it is passed in Parliament, it becomes law. Now, do you want to give the executive such excess power? No. We in the Patriotic Front wouldn't do that at all.
Let me read something from the statement that was issued by the Law Association of Zambia last week, where they rejected the proposed constitutional amendment reform, describing it as a reincarnation of Bill 10, which was previously opposed by various stakeholders we know of the UPND. And last President there, urged the government, if you looked at that statement, to reconsider its plan to amend the Constitution in a piecemeal manner, especially to so close to the electoral cycle, and even questioned the motive behind this. Now, yesterday, I'll still make reference to Mr. Mumba. He mentioned that most people that are commenting on the amendment, especially those that are on the opposing side, are doing this from an informed position. He said they should take time to read so that they can make an informed position even as they are commenting on this matter. We've seen, it's not just politicians like yourselves, for example, that are opposing this. We've seen the Law Association of Zambia itself, we've seen civil society organizations, some of which are led by legal minds, and just other people basically well vested in the law that are opposing this. So when you hear sentiments coming from somebody who's been vice president before, who's been a leader of the party, it's saying people should read so that they make contributions based on informed decisions. How do you look at such caliber of offering criticism in Zambia?
That is entirely up to Nevas Mumba. If he thinks that people are commenting have not read, then how come they are speaking to the provisions of the amendments? Has he heard anyone who's just speaking generally? Have you heard me speaking generally? We're not speaking generally, we're speaking to the actual amendments. But if Nevas Mumba has heard some people who are speaking generally without focusing on what has been presented as amendments, then he must point at such people. At least the ones I've listened to myself are speaking to two things. They are speaking to the process. Okay? And when people speak to the process, they are saying the provisions of the law and the constitution-making process anywhere in the world must be people-driven. That is not talking from a misinformed position. People are saying in the past, all the six previous processes were governed by a legal framework. Is that speaking from without? No. So Nevas Mumba must also speak from his perspective. And like I said, he must also appear to be consistent. For us in the Patriotic Front, we agree that most of these provisions were in Bill 10. But we had many more provisions than this. Now, they have narrowed down these provisions and only selected those that are to do with elections. And the only one that has nothing to do with elections is the one for Secretary to Cabinet. And I oppose it entirely, and we in Tonse, we in PF oppose it entirely. There was a reason why we said for a person to qualify to be Secretary to Cabinet, they must have at least 10 years experience, because they are going to be supervisors of other permanent secretaries. Now, you don't get a novice to go and supervise people who are experienced. You get an experienced person. How do you go and pick a novice? And their argument is that this is to allow for youths to ascend to positions. Are you sure that you're going to get a person who is a novice, first year as the permanent secretary or 5 years permanent secretary, and you say you're going to be secretary to cabinet to supervise people who have been in the civil service for longer than you? No.
Is there a political will, just from your observation, really, from the President of the Republic of Zambia, President Hakainde Hichilema, to appoint women in key leadership positions? I know during the Women's Day he was advocating for support toward the amendment of the Constitution, and he said he wanted proportional representation. He wanted to see more women in politics, more women into parliament. And I want you to answer this question with reference to what happened last week. We saw the local government minister, Honorable Gary Nkombo, fired. And some people were expecting that probably as a way of just showing that if the president wants to see more women, he would appoint a female to replace the minister. But then we saw another gentleman appointed in that position. So for you as a party, when you look at what happened and what the president is saying, do you think there is a political will?
I'm very happy it is you who is saying that, not me. I'm very happy you said it, and you said it very eloquently. In the midst of a conversation about his passion to have women, his passion to have youths, an opportunity falls on his plate, and he forgets the passion. for opportunity. Penalty given. I remember Dennis Liwewe. Penalty given. Here is a penalty, President Hakainde. Can you score by showing that you're removing Gary Nkombo, who actually is not even an old man, by the way? Okay? Gary Nkombo is not that old. He's middle age. You remove a middle-aged guy and you don't replace him by a youth, you don't replace him by a woman, and meanwhile you are going around saying, I want to amend the constitution so that there are more women. No, you have the provisions already. Article 259 gives you power, Mr. President, to balance based on region, to balance based on gender, to balance based on age. Why are you not using Article 259? Why are you not using it?
Let's see if we can accommodate a few calls. But before we get there, we have a voice note that has come through by our WhatsApp line. Let's see if we can listen to this voice note and just hear what the contribution is coming in from our listener.
Good morning, Honorable Lubinda. Otherwise, in somewhere from Garden House. Inacholenga kuseko nilikuwa na question ni mozi ya first ya kwati. Ona lepo mshe plani pia tu iendera pati. Nisewe na ngoni kamenti kimpegezera kuti tingaleko nice na celebration tienda pati. Because tinaona chape na media kuti washamtembo wali kushina ili kukoti but hapa manje spimera pamene biendera. Tu ilivyo pamene wakamba ili vama free education chani free education yenzeko mulikaunda osaona munga kutepena president Hakainde chile matiari tako che free education kuzambia no ilvini kele kaunda enzanane ta free education yenzemo mzambia osabara wantu matu watia kuharida free education iya hii funzaki ili wakudara wabizi wazi.
Okay, thank you so much. You can be a part of this program and interact with our guest this morning. In studio we have Patriotic Front Acting President, Honorable Given Lubinda, who is also former Justice Minister. The number you're calling this morning is 0966 992770. 0966-992770. You can also call us on 0977-977860. That is 0977-977860. Well, you can use the same number to send through your voice note and we'll shortly play it. Let's see if we can interact with someone. Good morning. Your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Lusaka in Sparta. Honorable Mukamba Kumapambi, and we are blessed that we still have men and women who are able to speak for the people. I am a constitutional amendment. They were an afterthought after our own popularity and era. How do you amend the constitution? By breaking the constitution.